Every morning, before a single thought forms, your blood makes a decision. It decides whether it will move freely like a river at dawn or slow into something heavier, thicker, more dangerous. Most people imagine blood clots as sudden emergencies, but in reality, they are often quiet consequences of small daily signals sent while we sleep, wake, breathe, and choose how we begin the day. The morning is not just the start of time on a clock. It is a biological negotiation between flow and resistance, between healing and risk. Before your feet touch the floor, your blood has already lived through hours of quiet negotiation with gravity and stillness. During sleep, circulation slows, water gradually leaves the bloodstream through breathing and perspiration, and blood becomes slightly more concentrated. This change is subtle, almost invisible, yet biologically meaningful. Thicker blood flows with more resistance, allowing cells to spend more time in contact with one another and with vessel walls. This is not inherently harmful, it is part of normal physiology, but it creates a condition where clotting can become more likely if balance is not restored. The body anticipates this moment, which is why one of the simplest morning actions carries such disproportionate influence: drinking water. When water enters the stomach after waking, it is absorbed rapidly into the bloodstream, increasing plasma volume and gently lowering viscosity. Red blood cells regain space, slipping past one another instead of clustering, and circulation resumes its intended rhythm. This is not about flushing toxins or performing a symbolic cleanse, it is about restoring fluid dynamics. Blood behaves according to physical laws, and water changes those laws in your favor. Even a modest level of dehydration can raise blood thickness enough to strain the heart and slow microcirculation, especially in small vessels where clots are more likely to begin. Hydration eases this strain quietly, without stimulation or stress. It does not force the system, it supports it. As blood thins slightly, oxygen delivery improves, tissues awaken more evenly, and the heart does not need to push as hard to achieve the same result. This is particularly important in the morning, when blood pressure naturally rises as the body transitions from rest to activity. Water buffers that rise, softening the shift instead of amplifying it. There is also a chemical conversation happening beneath the surface. Adequate hydration influences platelet behavior, making them less prone to unnecessary aggregation while preserving their ability to respond to injury. It supports kidney filtration, helping maintain proper electrolyte balance, which in turn affects how blood vessels constrict or relax. In this way, a glass of water becomes a signal of readiness, informing multiple systems that movement is returning and stability is required. What makes this habit powerful is its humility. It does not promise instant transformation or dramatic sensation. Its effect is cumulative, physiological, and deeply respectful of how the human body evolved to function. In choosing to hydrate first thing in the morning, you are not intervening aggressively. You are correcting a predictable imbalance created by sleep itself. You are allowing blood to return to flow rather than resistance, to cooperation rather than friction, setting the tone for circulation that moves with ease instead of effort. As the body transitions from sleep to wakefulness, the circulatory system faces a critical moment of recalibration. For hours, blood has moved under reduced muscular assistance, relying primarily on the heart rather than the rhythmic compression of muscles that normally help propel it forward. This absence of movement allows blood to pool slightly in the lower extremities and slows the return of blood to the heart. When morning arrives, the body does not automatically correct this imbalance, it waits for a signal. That signal is movement. Even gentle motion sends mechanical information through the blood vessels, particularly to the endothelium, the thin, intelligent layer of cells lining every artery and vein. These cells respond not to intention or effort, but to sheer stress, the friction created when blood begins to flow more rapidly along vessel walls. This friction stimulates the release of nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes and widens blood vessels, reducing resistance and improving circulation. Without movement, this chemical response remains muted, and blood continues to move with unnecessary effort. Morning motion does not need to be intense to be effective. A slow walk, light stretching, or simply standing and shifting weight activates large muscle groups in the legs and hips, which act like auxiliary pumps for the venous system. Each contraction gently squeezes veins, pushing blood upward against gravity and preventing stagnation. This process reduces the chance that blood will linger long enough to form clots in vulnerable areas. It also lowers the burden on the heart, allowing it to work with the body rather than compensate for its stillness. Beyond mechanics, movement alters the hormonal environment of the bloodstream. Physical motion reduces stress hormones that promote clotting and inflammation, replacing them with signals associated with balance and repair. Blood becomes less reactive, less prepared for injury that does not exist. In this sense, movement is a form of reassurance, telling the body that it has entered a predictable, controlled state rather than an emergency. There is also a neurological dimension. Movement engages sensory pathways that improve coordination between the brain and the vascular system, fine-tuning blood pressure regulation and flow distribution. This coordination ensures that oxygen and nutrients reach tissues evenly, preventing localized stress that can damage vessel walls and invite clot formation. What makes morning movement especially significant is timing. Early activity establishes a baseline for circulation that can persist for hours, influencing how blood responds to prolonged sitting, stress, or exertion later in the day. It is not about burning calories or achieving fitness goals. It is about restoring dialogue between blood, vessels, muscles, and nerves. In honoring movement at the start of the day, you are not demanding performance from the body. You are simply reminding it of its design, encouraging blood to move as a living system rather than a static fluid, reducing the quiet conditions in which clots are most likely to take hold. The first foods that enter the body in the morning do more than satisfy hunger. They establish the chemical tone of the bloodstream for hours ahead. After a night of fasting, metabolic pathways are especially receptive, and nutrients move quickly from the digestive tract into circulation. This means that breakfast is not merely a meal, but a set of biochemical instructions delivered directly to the blood. Platelets, the cells responsible for clot formation, are particularly sensitive during this time. Their role is essential. They protect against bleeding, but they are also reactive, responding to signals from inflammation, blood sugar fluctuations, and circulating fats. When the morning meal is dominated by refined sugars or heavily processed fats, platelets become more prone to clumping, interpreting the metabolic surge as a form of stress. Blood thickens not because it is damaged, but because it has been warned. In contrast, whole foods rich in natural antioxidants and fiber speak a different language. Fruits, seeds, nuts, and plant-based compounds interact with platelets in ways that gently reduce excessive aggregation without impairing their protective function. These compounds modulate oxidative stress, a process that can damage blood vessel walls and make them more attractive sites for clot formation. By lowering oxidative burden, the blood moves through vessels that remain smoother and more responsive. Fiber, often overlooked in discussions of circulation, plays a quiet yet powerful role. Soluble fiber influences cholesterol metabolism, reducing circulating particles that can irritate vessel linings and trigger clotting cascades. It also slows the absorption of sugars, preventing sharp spikes in blood glucose that promote inflammation and increase blood viscosity. This creates a steadier internal environment, one in which blood can flow without urgency. There is also a systemic effect. Nutrients absorbed in the morning reach the liver first, where clotting factors are produced and regulated. A balanced, nutrient-dense meal helps the liver maintain proportional clotting activity rather than excessive readiness. This is not about suppressing clotting, but about refining it, allowing the body to respond accurately rather than aggressively. Morning nutrition also affects the gut microbiome, which communicates directly with the immune and circulatory systems. Certain food components encourage beneficial bacteria that produce compounds supporting vascular health and reducing low-grade inflammation. Over time, this relationship shapes how reactive the blood becomes under stress. What makes this habit profound is its subtlety. There is no immediate sensation that blood is flowing better, no dramatic shift in awareness. Yet within minutes, the bloodstream is altered at a molecular level, becoming calmer, more balanced, and less inclined toward unnecessary clot formation. Choosing what to eat in the morning is not an act of control or restriction. It is an act of cooperation. It respects the intelligence of the body and offers it materials that support clarity rather than confusion. In this way, food becomes not just fuel, but guidance, quietly shaping the behavior of blood as it moves through the vessels that sustain every organ. Breathing is the most constant movement in the body, yet it is also the one most likely to drift into unconscious neglect. In the early hours of the morning, breathing patterns often remain shallow and irregular, shaped by lingering stress hormones released before waking. These hormones prepare the body for threat, subtly altering blood chemistry in anticipation of injury or exertion. When this state persists unnecessarily, it influences clotting behavior. Stress hormones increase platelet reactivity and promote vasoconstriction, narrowing blood vessels and slowing flow. Blood becomes thicker not because the body is malfunctioning, but because it has been instructed to remain on alert. Slow, intentional breathing reverses this message at its source. Deep inhalations and extended exhalations stimulate the vagus nerve, shifting the nervous system away from survival mode and toward regulation. As parasympathetic activity increases, cortisol and adrenaline levels begin to fall, and the bloodstream responds almost immediately. Blood vessels relax, peripheral resistance decreases, and circulation becomes smoother. This physiological shift is measurable, but it is also deeply felt, even if only as a subtle sense of ease. Oxygen delivery improves with slower breathing, not because more oxygen is taken in, but because gas exchange becomes more efficient. Red blood cells release oxygen more readily when the internal environment is calm, reducing the strain on the heart and lowering blood pressure. This efficiency discourages the stagnation that allows clots to form, particularly in smaller vessels where flow is easily disrupted. Breathing also influences carbon dioxide levels, which play a direct role in regulating blood vessel diameter. When breathing is rushed or shallow, carbon dioxide is expelled too quickly, leading to vessel constriction. Slow breathing restores this balance, allowing vessels to remain open and responsive. There is a rhythmic element to this process. Each deep breath creates gentle pressure changes in the chest that assist venous return, helping blood move back toward the heart. In this way, breathing becomes a mechanical aid to circulation, complementing the work of the muscles and heart. What makes morning breathing particularly powerful is its immediacy. Unlike exercise or nutrition, which require time to exert their full effects, breathing alters blood chemistry within seconds. A few minutes of calm breathing can reduce the clot-promoting signals generated by stress and reactivity, setting a different baseline for the day. This is not a technique meant to override biology, but one that works with it, restoring a state the body naturally recognizes as safe. In a world that often encourages speed and urgency, choosing to breathe slowly in the morning is a quiet form of resistance. It tells the bloodstream that there is no emergency, no need to prepare for injury, no reason to thicken or tense. Over time, this daily signal accumulates, shaping how blood responds to pressure, stress, and uncertainty. Breathing, in this sense, becomes more than respiration. It becomes a form of internal communication, guiding the blood toward balance rather than defense. Light is one of the most underestimated biological signals influencing blood behavior, yet it has shaped human physiology for as long as blood has flowed through human veins. In the morning, natural light enters the eyes and sends immediate information to the brain's central clock, signaling that night has ended and activity is returning. This signal does not stay confined to sleep and wakefulness. It travels outward, influencing hormones, metabolism, and the timing of clotting mechanisms throughout the body. During darkness, the body favors conservation and repair, releasing hormones that slow systems down and slightly increase blood's readiness to clot in case of injury during rest. As morning light appears, this internal chemistry is meant to shift. Exposure to natural light suppresses melatonin and encourages the release of cortisol in a controlled, healthy rhythm. This cortisol rise is not the same as stress-induced cortisol. It is a timing signal that helps regulate blood pressure and vascular tone. When light exposure is delayed or absent, this transition becomes disorganized, and clotting factors released by the liver can become excessive rather than precise. The liver plays a central role in blood clot regulation, producing proteins that determine how quickly blood coagulates. These proteins follow circadian rhythms, rising and falling according to light cues. Morning sunlight helps synchronize this rhythm so clotting remains balanced rather than overactive. Blood pressure also follows this pattern, naturally increasing in the morning to support upright posture and movement. When circadian timing is aligned, this rise is smooth and controlled. When misaligned, pressure can spike abruptly, increasing strain on vessel walls and creating conditions where clots are more likely to form. Light exposure also affects the flexibility of blood vessels. Circadian alignment supports healthy endothelial function, allowing vessels to expand and contract responsively rather than remaining stiff or reactive. This flexibility keeps blood moving evenly, reducing areas of turbulence where clotting can begin. Beyond vessels and proteins, light influences behavior in ways that indirectly protect circulation. Morning light encourages earlier movement, better breathing patterns, and improved metabolic responses to food, all of which feed back into blood health. What makes this habit unique is that it requires no effort beyond presence. Standing near a window, stepping outside briefly, allowing daylight to reach the eyes without barriers becomes a biological instruction rather than a wellness ritual. Artificial light does not carry the same spectrum or timing information, which is why natural morning light holds particular power. Over time, consistent exposure trains the body to anticipate flow, movement, and nourishment at predictable intervals, reducing internal confusion that leads to inflammatory and clot-promoting responses. This habit reminds the blood that it is part of a larger rhythm, one governed not only by internal chemistry but by the rising sun itself. In honoring morning light, you align circulation with time, allowing blood to behave not as a fluid under constant threat, but as a living system moving confidently through a well-ordered day.